My ex-wife invited me to her son's birthday party, then mocked me in front of everyone, so I left a note about our secret relationship before her wedding and left. Her marriage has now fallen apart. Since our sophomore year in high school, we have been together. To put it more accurately, it had even seemed appropriate to be married since we had attended the same college. However, despite the length of time we had spent together prior to that, things didn't work out. After about a year of marriage, I decided I could no longer handle our almost daily fights and that I wanted to get out. Though I hadn't exactly fallen out of love with her, I was tired of arguing with her, so perhaps it was a rash decision. She's also rather proud. She didn't even try to struggle to stay with me when I told her that I wanted a divorce. She just stated that I was free to leave if I so desired. Yes, we did ultimately file for divorce. We weren't ready for marriage because it's a big deal and we were both very immature. We still had a lot of growing up to do, and if we had stayed together at that time, I don't think we could have accomplished it. However, we also had to account for the fact that she became pregnant during the divorce. We were going to have a baby, which changed everything. Before our divorce, I had assumed that we would never speak to one another. I really wanted to be a father, and she wanted to be a mother. Although we made an effort to put our disagreements behind us, I really believed that it would be best for us to split up. I was adamant about leaving, even though she wanted to put an end to the divorce process so we could try to work things out and get professional assistance. I told her that we could have tried co-parenting the child and sharing custody, but I had made up my mind and was not going to back down since the baby needed their mother the most. In the beginning, we could even live close to one another, but none of it pleased her. All she wanted was for our marriage to last. We were unable to reach a consensus during that difficult time and ended up deciding that we would alternate raising our child and try our best to maintain harmony for the benefit of our future child. We had a lot of arguments during that time. Although I can see why she wanted to remain married, I must admit that I had only tied the knot because I believed it to be the right thing to do. Since our second year of college, she had been talking about getting married. Even though I didn't think I was emotionally prepared for that kind of commitment prior to starting a family and getting married, I wanted to start my own life. However, I didn't want to break her heart because I knew that if I had told her that I wasn't ready for marriage, she would have most likely left me, or at the very least, there would have been arguments. So I decided to just get married for the sake of it, but after a year of being married to her, I realized that this was not my cup of tea, and I wanted to make my own way in life. That was the reason why I wanted to get a divorce. After I realized that we were going to have a baby, that resolve strengthened even more. I was not happy in this marriage, so I did not think it would be appropriate to stay married and then bring a baby into the world and put him through all of our unhappiness. If I was not happy with her and she was not happy with me, then it would have been better for us to part ways and try to co-parent our child peacefully instead of putting him through bad situations during his childhood. Having divorced parents from such a young age would have its own set of challenges, I'll give you that, but at least he would not grow up in a troubled household. That was my reasoning. She believed that we should have stuck together and stayed married because she thought that would have been the best for the baby. But anyway, that's all in the past. With great difficulty, I managed to get her to agree to my terms and we got divorced, but we continued to stay in touch for the sake of our baby and we still have continued that arrangement. Our son spends half the month at her place and the other half at mine. I try to be there for him as much as I can, and so does she. I can't say that we're friends. I know she still has a lot of animosity towards me, and rightfully so, but I did my best and I do have a lot of love for her in my heart. I wanted her to be able to have her own life as well. I was aware that she would never be able to truly be happy with me since my heart was not in the marriage. I loved her, but I wanted other things in life, and I was just not ready for marriage. That was my mistake. I acknowledged that and I accept it. After our divorce, I was still there for her in a platonic capacity and as a father. I accompanied her to all of her appointments, and when our son was born, I was there with her every step of the way. I even stayed with her for a couple of days to make sure that she was all right. I did everything that a good father and a good partner should do. But in spite of all of that, she would tell everybody about how I had abandoned her when she needed me the most and made me seem like some monster. Most of my friends stopped speaking to me because of her, but I didn't even bring that up with her. I continued to do my duties as a partner and a father. I accepted it because I knew that I had wronged her by marrying her when I was not ready to do it. That was not something that I should have done, and I figured that this was my punishment for doing that, and I was okay with it. There was not much that I could do about the issue because if I stopped speaking to her at that time and began a battle with her for telling all her friends such things about me, it would simply confirm her comments to be true. The funny thing was that even when she was going around telling our friends awful things about me, she was always pleasant to me whenever we would meet. To be honest, I truly used to feel that she was willing to get back together with me. Even though she had been spreading lies about me, it was very confusing, to be honest, because on the one hand, she was trying to damage my reputation in front of our friends, and on the other hand, she was always polite to me to my face and acted like she could not live without me and still loved me. Not knowing what to make of it, I basically decided to focus on my career. After our son was a couple of months old, she went back to work, and we started meeting less regularly. She resumed seeing other guys roughly after a year of our divorce, and I would hear from a couple of my friends who had still bothered to stay in touch with me that she was back to dating. I won't say that it didn't upset me, since even though I was the one who had filed and pressed on for a divorce, I still loved her. But I did not say anything to her about it since I wanted her to be happy, and I had made my choice, so even if I was dissatisfied, I just had to suck it up and deal with it. In my defense, both of us were really young and confused about our feelings, so that's why things were the way they were. She would always make a large production out of her dates as well, so everybody would be able to find out about it. Then after a few months, she noticed that I had not commented about it. She then made the decision to talk to me about it and informed me that she was now seeing other people. She apologized if this made me feel awful, but she wanted to be upfront with me about it so I wouldn't have to find out from other people. She was well aware that I remained silent about it and that I assured her I was okay with it. When I decided not to go farther with the matter, she appeared a little unhappy. I just took my son and left. She seemed to want me to chat with her about it and inquire about things like whether or not she had moved on between us. Things were constantly perplexing, hot, and frigid. That much is evident. Now she stopped posting about her day on social media after that talk, and I knew that it had something to do with me letting her know that I didn't really care. Then one day, she arrived at my residence to pick up our son. However, it began to rain, so we made the decision to bring her inside so she could hang out with us until the rain stopped. As we had already been separated for almost 2 years, I figured it would be all right as I had done it out of courtesy. As we were conversing, our son was dozing off in the adjacent room. We were talking about old times when she suddenly reached out to me, and I realized that even though I was no longer with her, I still loved her. It felt nice when we were able to sleep together, and she stayed the night at my house. However, she took our son with her when she left the following day. Either before I even woke up or before breakfast, she sent me a note informing me that it had been an error and that she no longer wished to reunite with me. Though I was devastated, I supported her decision because it was hers. I tried not to think too much about it, resigned to the fact that this had been an isolated incident and put it down to the weather outside and the fact that I had let her inside. She must have also been lonely following our divorce, as I am aware that the number of people seeking to date single parents was low. I made the decision not to make a big deal out of the numerous things, and we returned to our friendly partnership as parents rather than lovers. After that, I began to distance myself from her and limited our conversations to our son. After that episode, she made multiple attempts to talk to me and get back to normal, but each time she was met with rejection. After that, she began dating Jonathan. He was a decent man. He was the older brother of a school friend of mine, so I was acquainted with him. Knowing Jonathan to be a good man who would make sure she was happy once they were together made me happy for her. We were okay with it as she now had a boyfriend, and I was attempting to move on from her and continue with my life and profession. Our interactions had dwindled even further. In other words, our encounters had decreased significantly during the previous 3 years. I always got along well with Jonathan. I feel especially awful about what I did to the guy a few weeks before his wedding because I used to visit them to pick up or drop off my son. I'm sure you can already figure out where I'm headed with this. I consider it to be among the worst things I have ever done in my life, and I am not proud of it. Indeed, I did have one final sexual encounter with Kathy prior to her marriage. She just showed up at my apartment a few weeks before her wedding, so I guess she had cold feet or something. We had made it a point to never speak to each other unless it had to do with our son, so I believed that there was only 1 month left before the big day. I also did not anticipate her showing up at my place at that time, and our son was at her house at the time. I was somewhat perplexed when she appeared that day. However, I was curious because it was so late at night. She just fell into my arms when I opened the door for her. She was crying and telling me how much she missed me. She also admitted to me that she had made a big mistake and that the whole reason she had been doing all these things for the previous few years was to get me back. She claimed she had never been able to move on, but she was aware that I had different goals in life than she did and that we would never get along. Furthermore, there was very little chance that our second marriage would be any different from our first, even if we did wind up getting back together. It explained a lot of things because she was just so confused about what to do and had been playing mind games and acting erratically with me. We kissed after I told her that I had not been able to move on either and that I was unsure of how I felt. Before we knew it, we had completed the task. One thing led to another, and later on, I still feel horrible about it. I felt terrible about it. However, I genuinely believed that following that occurrence, Kathy would leave Jonathan and join me since I loved her so much. However, that did not occur. Once more, the following morning, she broke down in tears. I needed to comfort her. She confessed to me that she was afraid that things would not work out even though she loved Jonathan. Once again, the idea that she genuinely loved him and was only with me to divert her attention from the fact that she was getting married and extremely afraid devastated my heart. She pleaded with me to keep this a secret, saying that she didn't want to endanger her connection with Jonathan and that finding out about our relationship had just made her understand how much she loved him. Otherwise, she wouldn't have felt bad about it. I really did not want to be the guy she ignored, especially because she insisted that I lie to everyone and never tell anyone about what happened. Additionally, I was certain that I would not benefit from her connection, so I did not want to break it. She went after I assured her that I would not tell anyone. That was it. She got married. I was really unhappy with how things turned out. At this point in my life, I'm almost ready to get married again and I still love her, so I had begun to think that she would eventually return, though it seemed implausible after she married Jonathan. I've never been able to move on, and it appears even less possible that we would end up together in light of what transpired a few days ago. She's truly not a good person, and no amount of love and devotion will change that. It just took me a long time to accept it, even though I realized that a long time ago. Though I don't think that will happen, I had always hoped that perhaps she might change. Even though I may also be a horrible person, at least I don't intentionally hurt other people or play with their emotions. She does that for sure. She most likely enjoys it as well, which is why she has done everything thus far. She always starts things, so I don't think I can be held responsible for most of it. She is aware of my feelings for her, and it is her duty to not take advantage of them. It's definitely a second twist, and I don't deny that I encouraged it or engaged with her. However, I accepted her invitation to my son's birthday celebration a few days ago, and I had a great time. Our son's birthday is usually celebrated by whichever parent he is living with at the time, and then they both celebrate separately when the other parent picks him up. In that sense, our son is quite fortunate. He is blessed with 2 birthdays. But then his mother decided that since he was getting older and it was becoming too much, it would be preferable for us to just have 1 birthday celebration this year. I decided to support him and share the party's expenses with her. However, upon arriving at the celebration, I noticed that she had lost her vigor and had begun making jabs about me. The moment I entered, I arrived after work rather late. By then, most of the guests had come, so she started by making fun of me for being late to my son's birthday party. That is, the result of prioritizing work over all other considerations. That was obviously a thinly veiled attempt to make fun of me for having to choose my work above her throughout our divorce. Then she began making fun of my receding hairline, which surprised me a lot because there are a lot of things about her appearance that I find funny, and I was quite embarrassed by that. So I did not see that coming. We are also fully grown adults. It's not appropriate, in my opinion, for people to pick on one another like kindergartners. Jonathan then entered the conversation and informed me that he believed it was due to the amount of stress I was putting on myself. It was evident that I was not leading a fulfilling life and had made some poor decisions. So they suggested that I try taking some time off from work and live life to the fullest. I asked them to clarify something I shouldn't have done because it wasn't necessary at that particular location or time. They began listing all the reasons they believed I had messed up my life. I shouldn't have asked in the first place because I knew how this would turn out and how terrible it would be for me. But then they started giving out incredibly ridiculous excuses. For example, they said that divorcing my ex-wife in my first divorce was a bad decision because it was obviously not a good thing for me since I was still single. And that prioritizing work over everything else in my life was a worse decision because it caused me to miss out on opportunities to spend time with my family and to be late to my own son's birthday parties. It didn't seem to take into account that, in contrast to them, I had to work. I have to make my own path because I don't come from a wealthy household. Though I remained silent, I was taken aback by Kathy's remarks and Jonathan's apparent support for her at that time. After they had finished chatting with me and had gone off to amuse the other guests, I began to feel less guilty about what I had done a few months before. I was so mad that I decided to write a tiny message on my birthday present to let Kathy know that I was not going to say anything at the party because of my kid, but I wouldn't hold back from disclosing her secrets if she said something like that again. I didn't write all that much. I simply wrote, "I still know your secret, and I understand that you would prefer that no one else find out. Watch what you say around me." Then I returned home after sneaking out of the celebration. I had previously told my son that I didn't want to see Kathy, and he was right there having a good time with his buddies. I am aware that after that, I was not missed. Around 9 in the morning, I got a call from Kathy, who was crying. She assured me that she was very sorry for what she had said, obviously having read the note. She was only angry with me because I was running late, even though our son had been inquiring about me for several days. Here's before I finally arrived, they had to cut the cake without me. However, I wasn't even at fault. Although I had left work on time, I was running late because of the terrible traffic on my trip home. Not that I was putting work ahead of my son. I found it offensive that she was making such statements. In addition to the things they were saying following the type of relationship we had shared, she then began pleading with me to stop bringing this up. But the night before, I realized that I was ruining my life, not for the reasons they said, but rather because I had repeatedly given Kathy the opportunity to turn things around. On the phone, I didn't make her any promises. I simply told her that I was busy and would speak with her later. But now that I'm thinking about it, I might actually approach Jonathan and tell him the truth because I don't think I can handle this any longer. It's also troubling my conscience. This is beyond me. If I told my ex-wife's spouse the truth about her, why would it matter? That's all I want to know. First update: a week has passed after the celebration, and I haven't heard from Kathy. In addition, I did message Jonathan about Kathy cheating on him before the wedding. I feel a lot more relieved than I typically do, so I think it really helped. I feel as though a heavy weight has been lifted off my chest, allowing me to breathe at last. A month before the wedding, I had blocked Jonathan and Kathy after sending that message and the evidence of her presence at my house. When I go to her residence a few weeks later to pick up my son, I know that I will eventually have to meet her, but I don't have to talk to her right now. I've also instructed everyone I know to avoid talking to her during our discussions. I'm not going to be made to feel bad or sorry for doing what I had to do. I told the truth and gave my side of the tale. With that episode, I'm done. I'm not interested in continuing the conversation or finding out what she's going through at the moment, as I'm sure it's nothing compared to what Jonathan and I went through as a result of her indecision. Additionally, to be really honest, we no longer share many friends. Her pals will undoubtedly try to make me feel bad about it. I'm sure of it. However, nothing has occurred as of yet since I have not received any messages or threats since I sent that message approximately 4 days ago. I assume that they have not yet informed anyone. However, I am aware that everyone will make an effort when the news is released. I'm ready for that mentally. I refuse to allow it to affect me. Second anticipated, the news of their divorce has already surfaced. The communication I sent to Jonathan was 2 weeks ago. He hasn't gotten back to me. He's probably run out of things to say because really, what do you say to the guy who cheated on your wife? Nevertheless, she pursued me with her friends not long after word leaked out. Many of her friends and family have texted me accusing me of being a sociopath and saying that I destroyed their marriage. They think that I did this because I wanted to have her all to myself, but that is not at all how it is. Simply put, I did this to absolve myself of guilt. Perhaps she was to blame, but I also made a mistake and I have to step up. Being a decent person is a prerequisite for becoming a good father. Jonathan is the only one with whom I have sympathy in this circumstance. He is a truly kind man. He didn't deserve any of this. But at least he can now move on because I told him everything. For himself, he can find someone better. I'm relieved that he will be divorcing. Better is due to him. Perhaps I don't, even though I wasn't ready the day I married Kathy. I dug my own grave. We are both tearing people apart. Therefore, I suppose we are meant to be apart. 3 updates announced their divorce almost a month ago, and when I went to pick up our son from Kathy's house last week, she didn't even bother to answer the door. Our son told me that his mother had been in a state ever since she and Jonathan got into that major argument, but he had no idea what was going on. He was the one who informed me that Kathy no longer goes out to work and instead spends the entire day sleeping in her bed. His grandma, Kathy's mother, now comes every day to take care of him, cook for everyone, and maintain the house in order. The child is obviously completely perplexed and unaware of what is happening. He hasn't heard anything from anyone. I don't know what to answer him when he keeps asking me why Uncle Jonathan left the house and why the two of them are fighting. It's devastating. I suppose I feel a little bad about it, but I don't really need to because I know I did the right thing. It's just difficult for me as a dad. I don't care what her friends and family think of me. They're still contacting me about it and trying to paint me as the villain. 4th update: hello everyone. I apologize for not updating this thread in about a year. I just realized that after being separated for a few months, Kathy is now divorced. She moved to the suburbs 4 hours away from my house and is currently in therapy. We used to live close by so that our son's commute would be easy, but that is no longer the case. She retreated to maintain her distance from everyone and everything, even me. A few days after her divorce proceedings started, she confided in me, saying that although she still loved me deeply, we were not a good fit at the moment. Life will find a way for us to be together if that is indeed our destiny, but we have to keep apart for the time being. That must be the case. Our son can now spend the weekend with her and the remainder of the week with me, thanks to a modification of our parenting agreement. I hope she gets better with time, but even so, I still love her. Since I'm also attending treatment, I really hope that I do. I'm attempting to resolve everything. Perhaps in the future, we will both be better. We might even be content, perhaps in partnership and perhaps not. However, I'm going to make an effort to get there.